Good evening, everyone. How are you all doing? Yeah, great. So it's such a great evening. Two things happening this time. One, we've never done this on a weekday. So this is the first time the Chai and Just Chat is happening on a weekday. And we've really never moved away from the Johns Creek, Alpharetta area. So it's nice to be here in Buckhead along with you all. And it's an interesting topic. And again, I'd like to thank all the panelists for being here this evening, sharing their wisdom and knowledge. And as I hear from my cell phone that people are coming and beating the traffic and are still coming, but we have the panelists here. One of the panelists is not able to make it because of last-minute schedule, but the state representative just texted me an hour ago that he is on the legislative session. And the legislative session is on they're deciding on the Atlanta airport, right? So you've been hearing about it. So he's against the state taking it over. So he's fighting that. And then there's another legislation that's going on women abortion and the law. So he's fighting on, should be a women's, yeah, it should be a woman's decision what to do with it. And then the other thing he's working on is the Confederate buildings, the emblems, should it be there on public buildings or not? So he wanted to make sure that I get this message to you all. And Chai and Just Chat is every month at no cost sessions for participants, open to all. People ask, why do we do this? One goal is to connect more and connect people more and to get involved in humanitarian efforts, to increase communication efforts, to do good. Right? And there are indirect and direct happenings that happens because of this. People connect, and there are a lot of things that goes on, good things, and we hope to continue this. And this is our 19th session, and we've not missed a session till now. It's on different topics. And this afternoon or this evening, we have the entrepreneur or the startups, and we want to quickly introduce you from my right. I'm going to introduce quickly, and you have their profiles running. So for the interest of time, you can read about them further on their profiles. Eric, thank you for being here. You call yourself a serial entrepreneur. We are looking forward to hearing more this evening. And Satya, you have so much more to inspire many more women. You run the edible arrangements in the Suwannee area. And for your tastes, we do have we do have the edible arrangement tasting right over there. And it's all healthy fruits and vegetables.
Free sack.
It's free sack. And Dr. Lopez loves it. I can see that already.
I can't eat them.
Dr. Lopez is the president of the Thai Atlanta, and that's connecting Indian professionals together, and he has his monthly meetings. But apart from that, he wears several hats. He's also the co-founder of 1111 Venture Capitalist, and he's also getting involved in the Bitcoin efforts, so we'll talk about it a bit. So he does wear several hats. Sam thinks he's the youngest, but I'm going to give him the bad news that Sam, I turned 19 last year. Yeah? So Sam is collaborating with Chai and Just Chat for this month. He is an entrepreneur, and you'll get to see how, in a good way, ambitious entrepreneur, he will push anyone to get to the results, which is a good thing, right? He's also the CEO of AppZoro Technologies. And Lucy and I have known each other for many, many years, 5-6 years by now, when I worked at the county. She is an inventor, right? Or innovator, whatever you call those people who see the gap and connect the technology with the healthcare industry. And so you will get to hear more of what she's done. You can look her up in her company as well. Dr. Neil, if any of you all hadn't been here this evening, and if it was just Dr. Neil sitting in the audience, I'm the happiest person. So you can see how much I have respect for him. He'll tell us more, but he is the chairman of the Quantum Bank. And he also he's a retired cardiologist. Let me put it that way. So he's a retired cardiologist. Thank you for being here. Chantel, we really don't want to come to you because you're a lawyer. But I guess that's what we don't want to do in business. We want to make sure you're at the table. So thank you for coming this evening and sharing your wisdom today. And Antonio, we all want to come to you, but we want to be careful, right? because Antonio is a part of the ACE Loans organization that offers loans, small-time loans for young entrepreneurs, and we would love to hear more on how you play the part. So thank you again, and the food tonight is provided by Sankranti, which is in the Johns Creek area. You should make sure you taste the lotus seeds curry. It's made out of lotus flowers. It's the national flower of India. So I've never had lotus seeds curry, so make sure you taste it, and the chai and the naan and everything over there. And the session is sponsored by AppZoro tonight, and the family sponsor member is Anand Thakur, who couldn't be today because he has some conflicts going on. I think he's doing a move, so he couldn't be here tonight. So thank you again. At the end, we'll have the closing comments from the co-founders of Sabjiwala after the panel discussion is done, and also we'll have the Q&A, so you're welcome to ask any questions, and offer comments as well, because this is not just one side. We would love to hear from your side. I'm sure you have so much knowledge to share as well. So Eric, let's start with you. If you were to write a book about yourself, how would you name it?
Well, interestingly, I did write a book back in 2013 called Laddering. It was after I sold a research company, and it was a nice way to kind of put a pin in that, because I'd done that for about 11 years. I mean, I guess if you want to talk about a book about myself, it would be about constantly being curious. So the reason that I've been entrepreneurial is I've done all kinds of interesting things. One of the companies I'm working with now is in the multicultural hair care space. So I know what wefts are and what balayage means and how things get put, and that's something I wouldn't have known even 6 months ago. So I consistently and constantly look for things that are sort of new and interesting and different. I've ridden tractors all over the world because of my things that I've done. So I think that's the biggest thing, not being bored, like constantly curious.
Very nice, thank you. And I'm going to consider this that's a characteristic that an entrepreneur should have as well, or might be not.
Oh, absolutely. If you are not curious, you cannot be an entrepreneur. It's got to be,
Okay.
That's got to be a big part of it. It's something, and curious from the perspective of wanting to learn about it, regardless often of whether or not you're making money. So, and kind of when somebody comes to you and says they want to do something, you're like, cool, that sounds like a great idea. Let's go try that out. So there's this adventuresome side to it, and also, there's the difference between being a risk taker and someone who's interested in adventure. And often those two get confused in the entrepreneurial world. We talk about that as a risk, and I was chatting earlier about the fact that I think having a real job is more of a risk.
Right.
Because somebody else has responsibility for firing, hiring, promoting, giving you a raise. If you're an entrepreneur and you have 20 different deals going on, if one goes bad, you still got 19 to work off.
Very nice, thank you. If you can share the mic with Satya. Satya, the same question goes for you. If you were to write a book, what would you name it? About yourself.
Myself, make life a little sweeter.
Okay.
Well, we go through a lot of things every day. Ups, downs, money, not chasing money, chasing after kids, whatever. But stop over and look at your world around you and see what you can do and make it sweeter.
Very nice. So and I can see your tastings are really sweet as well. Dr. Lopez, thank you, Satya. If you had the magic wand in your hand, and if you had to change 3 things in this world, what would it be? It's like a genie asking you for 3 wishes.
And the third one would be that I'd get 3 more wishes. Why stop, right? I think that we have so many privileges. I don't think anybody sitting here in the room would say that we deserve what we have. True? So my first one would be that we really would help one another better. I think we're way too self-centered, and we don't need to be. We're a highly philanthropic nation, whether you got here like me, after you were born, or whether you got here from day one kind of deal. I'd say that people would really share and do a better job at helping others. I think if we did that, wouldn't this be a fabulous place to live, an even better place to live? I think the second one is that somebody take care of traffic. because I know every one of, no, that's probably not a good one too. But I think it's required we all drive one person to a car. You know, it's unlawful for us to carpool here in Georgia, right? That's what causes it. So on the second one, I think it's, you know, it's sort of connected that we all would leave a better legacy. I think we don't think about it. If you're under 40, you probably don't think. It's sort of tied to the first one. And you want to sort of, we should all be thinking, what would be our legacy? And so my third one is that we do get 3 more wishes. So.
Oh, good. Okay, thank you, Dr. Paul. Very insightful thoughts. Sam, the same
Yes.
question goes to you. If you had the magic wand,
Sure,
3
sure.
wishes.
So first of all, I would take a moment to thank everyone for coming out here tonight. Atlanta Tech Village, I would like to thank them. They've been our home for the past 3 years, and it's been an amazing journey coming up from no clients to so many clients nowadays that we have for AppZoro. So thank you to Atlanta Tech Village for hosting us, and thank you to Nazira for having us as sponsors. My 3 wishes would be, first of all, that it sounds cliched, but I want to do whatever I can to make the world a better place. So I feel like there's still a lot to learn for me, but my wish would be to do whatever I can in the world, in the environment, to help make it a better place for everyone. And in the business arena, I guess my second wish would be for my entrepreneurs or my clients to succeed at a better rate and be more successful. So entrepreneurship itself is very hard. So giving anyone as much encouragement as possible. So that would be my second wish. And I guess it's just everyone just do a better job and make everyone happy. So those would be my wishes.
Thank you so much, Sam. And you would think I'm not going to ask you if you drink. So I was going to say, he's going to be more on the entertainment side wishes, but you can see how ambitious in a good, positive way. So Sam, I sent him a few questions, and he said, I want to be more technical and less theatrical. So I understood. I said, in my mind, I can see how an entrepreneur thinking he has. So thank you, Sam, for getting me as a newbie into that field as well. And Lucy, your question is, are you happy?
So I've been sitting here listening to these questions thinking I wish I had been on the pre-call about the panel last week. I had a conflict, and I have no idea if these were discussed, but I'm coming into this totally cold.
And we were given the answers.
Man!
Just have to speak.
Should have known, yeah.
Are you happy, and what would you change?
So yes, I'm happy, and I think it's a little bit of a curse of entrepreneurship, though, right? A lot of us come into this because we're never satisfied, and I think distinguishing being happy from being satisfied is really important. Because I personally tend to be a very competitive person. I joke with my team if I'm terrible at celebrating wins. Like, we win a big account, and I sort of go, okay, what's next, right? Like, okay, that happened, great, let's move on. And that's hard as you build a team, because not everybody works the way I work, of like, I don't need that celebration, I just need to push on to the next thing. So I work on that, of how to show happiness to other people better so that they understand. Okay, thank you. What would I do better? I think that's a little bit of what I would do better, is allow myself those small celebrations before I move on to the next
Very
goal.
nice, very nice. I feel that is a sort of a characteristic of a competitive person, very competitive person, that they don't celebrate their small wins. They're always what's next.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, sounds good. Dr. Neal, are you happy?
I'm extremely happy. Yes.
Is there anything you would want to change?
Well, probably I would, now that I'm retired from cardiology practice, I would like to spend more time in giving whatever knowledge I have and how to make the young people succeed. And without expecting anything in return, I'm at a stage in life where you can help without any expectation in return, and I would like to do more of that.
Okay, can you all hear him in the back? Do we
No?
need to- Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Now, okay, now. So how do you celebrate happiness?
For the last few years, I've been celebrating both small events as well as big events. Anytime we reach a minor goal, we all go out and celebrate and thank the person who celebrated. And if it's a big event, then we all get together and have a bigger celebration.
Thank you
I've
so
learned that in the last few years.
Very nice, thank you. Chantel, what is, and I think you can use that one, yeah, you just have to switch it on. Chantel, what is your biggest fear and how would you manage your fear?
Oh, gosh.
Do you-
Okay, I also was not on the call. Sorry about that. My biggest fear, I think, is failure, right? So having gone to law school, I tell people that most lawyers are type A. I think I'm a type A minus. But I wouldn't describe myself as super competitive, but I've always done well, and so that's the expectation for myself. And so just the fear of failing in anything, in any area of life, is my biggest fear. How do you get over it? I mean, life helps you get over it, right? Because eventually you fail. And then you have to figure out how to pick up the pieces. And so I think once you get over that first big failure, whether it's a relationship, whether it's losing a job, whether it's a business not being successful, and then you realize, okay, life goes on after this failure. That's how you move on.
Great. Antonio, I'm not going to ask what's your client's biggest fear because I guess the rejection of a loan, but I'm going to ask your biggest fear as a person, professionally or personally, and how do you manage your fear?
Okay. Thank you again. Thank you for the invitation. Well, thinking I was not either in the call for the panel, so
We have conference calls with the panelists once prior, but that's fine.
that's fine. Okay. Well, definitely I think that one of my weaknesses, and sometimes it can be also in a fear, is sometimes you want to do everything by yourself, so you lack of delegate or sometimes even trust people when, especially if you're working in an environment that you know that it's a team, so it's collaboration. So I always try being more and more to work as a team and not try to do everything done myself, because at the end of the day, the results are be better. And on the personal side, is similar. My son now is 22 years old, and sometimes you feel as a parent you want to provide everything that you can, but definitely it's going to be a part that you just need to let them go and maybe don't be that person that is behind. So definitely learn to delegate and not to be the one that have to do everything is always a fear, because as I see with many of my clients, many of them have been successful is in the moment that they start trusting their employees and be able to delegate.
Thank you so much. So Eric, the first question is for you. So we go to the real questions. This was a warm-up start.
I want everyone to know it didn't matter if you were on the call. She didn't help us with the questions at all. She just asked us things. So yeah, what you got?
Eric, as I was growing up, all I've heard about business in South India, they called it business. My grandpa's doing business. Okay, so they didn't even know how to pronounce the word business long back then. Coming now, hearing more of entrepreneurs, I hear less of business, the word business. Is there a real difference between an entrepreneur and a businessman or a businesswoman? Are there any winning success factors to be a successful entrepreneur?
So I owned a research company prior to what I do now. And one of the things, I do a podcast that is on LinkedIn way too much. And one of the things I did was a project to understand why entrepreneurs were successful, because I was bored. So my company was running really well, and I was like, hey, I want to do a research project on entrepreneurs. Let's interview some and find out what's going on. And I thought they would tell me that they didn't have the money or the resources or the things that they needed. But what I found out is that entrepreneurs come from two backgrounds. You're either a rectify, or you're a rectify or an amplify. So you're either rectifying something from your past because someone told you when you were in 4th grade that you wouldn't be successful, that you would never graduate, that you didn't know how to read, or you had a really good upbringing and you wanted to amplify that. Steve Jobs is a perfect example of this. When Steve Jobs was 9 years old, he went to his parents and he said, "Mom and Dad, I was adopted. Someone didn't want me." And his parents turned around and said, "Oh no, Steve, you don't understand. We chose you." And from then on, that man lived like the chosen one. Now, if you had a happy childhood with very little kind of problems or things like that, then you're probably maybe not going to be an entrepreneur. You're going to be a 9-to-5 person, and you're going to have hobbies, and your life's going to be a lot simpler than mine. So you should be thankful for that. I don't have a lot of hobbies. I don't do a lot of things other than work. But if you've had some things in your past that you're either trying to rectify, 80% of people are rectifies, then you can be a great entrepreneur because you're trying to prove somebody something, or you're amplifying. Like Chick-fil-A, the story here in Atlanta with Chick-fil-A, that's an amplify story. Like everything went well with him. He really wanted to take that and take it out into the world. So I believe you had to have had a little bit of a tough childhood, a little bit of a background that wasn't exactly, the smoothest or the cleanest.
And so that's what your research,
Yeah, that's what my research showed.
wow.
People that were unsuccessful didn't typically have something that they were trying to prove.
Wow. So you're trying to say that all of us on
All these people up here, if I sat with them for long enough, I would
You're-
find the thing
something or the
or
other.
the things.
Oh. Wow. Is this true across the world?
I mean, I have found it, certainly, most of my stuff was here, America, right? But I mean, it does prove, we know that first generations that come to the US typically build businesses. I mean, that's the thing that they can do. And that's partially because they're coming into a tough situation. They really want to prove themselves. And that's why second and third generations don't do such a good job of moving the business forward. They didn't have the same struggle. They didn't know what it took to raise that first dollar or sign that first customer. It just doesn't have the same importance. So yeah.
That's interesting to know. Thank you. I'm glad I asked you that question. Even
Yeah, I
wasn't-
didn't know it though. Was not on the thing. She didn't ask me on the call.
So, sure. So Satya,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but when he was talking about when he researched only in U.S., I have few LinkedIn connections with Indian startups in India, and I pretty much see the same pattern that he's saying. Those in India who are trying to make their startup work, they are the ones who want to prove that they can.
wow.
And
Okay.
and it sounds good, but it's actually not so good. Like the fact that you're doing this for someone else, you learn this, right? Like, oh my gosh, I did this whole thing because my
You doubled
guidance
fast.
counselor told me I was dumb, right? And so you have to be okay with that. You have to be a little safe with it.
Wow. And just to be, so Sam's parents are here, so we can find out what went wrong.
Sorry, Sam's parents. It may not be you. It could have been a teacher or someone else. Somebody on the playground. I'll talk to Sam. We'll find out later.
Right. So again, feel free to grab tea and food anytime. You can eat. You can bring your food here and enjoy the conversation. So Satya, I don't think there's a woman entrepreneur word like you have businessman, businesswoman. Entrepreneur is entrepreneur, but I think more are labeled as men. So it's very little time that you would see a woman entrepreneur, maybe at this stage in this era. But also because there are fewer women entrepreneurs for the reason that we are more risk aversion. Women don't take risks so easily, right? Whether at home.
I differ. We are the risk
And that's why
takers,
you're here. That's why you're here. My question is, did you find being a woman as an asset in becoming an entrepreneur? Did you feel you were getting special attention?
I wish. I really wish that I got special attention. But actually, it's a struggle at the beginning because you're coming out of a shell where you were taught, hey, don't be rude to people, don't talk this way, or don't talk that way. But here in the, I would say, business community, you have to be a little firm on some things, and sometimes you have to be smooth. No, not special anywhere. Everybody's treated the same. Over here, because I can only talk about here in this area, yes, as me, I can reflect that I struggled through that shell, came out, established, knew the rules, how to walk through the rules, and how to go about. That's all I can say. Yes, it's a struggle, and I dare to say that every woman takes risks every day. Take, for instance, driving. I'm taking risk every day because you don't want me as a driver on the road. I'm sorry, but seriously.
Now you tell me.
I know, if I have 3 kids in the back and I'm doing multitasking, do you want me as a driver on the road? Absolutely not. But when you go to the driver's license, would you get the driver's license same as the other person? Absolutely. So you are given the same choice to choose where you want to go. You're the one who's making the decision. You're the one who's going to move and push yourself out of that shell. So
Yes.
I have met in this area, there are so many women entrepreneurs that we don't even know about. They are struggling. They are starting their own businesses. They are trying to find out other incomes. If you take a census report, there are so many single parents that they just want to meet the ends. They don't want to work 9 to 5 job. They want to work 9 to 6 job, and then 6 to 12 job, and 12 to 10 job. It's crazy. But we have to push through that shell to get it there.
Thank you. Does being in your prior life as a nuclear scientist help you when you're on the road saying, hey, I'm a nuclear scientist, I know more than you?
Oh, I had a flashing light saying, hey, this is green, and please move away because this is going to give radiations. So everybody moved away. So that's a different life. But now I can do that. I am a very good driver. Knock on wood. No tickets for the past 20 years, by the way. But it's good. It's good. What I'm saying is we have distractions. We have so many things. We have, as a woman, we have so many responsibilities, more than we can say about the other half. But yes, we do need some support. We do need that push and say, hey, you can do this.
Very good, thank you. Indeed, we do. And Dr. Paul, so when I started reading up for this session, I did realize that research does show that formal education doesn't really add much in the field of entrepreneurship. So can I tell Dr. Neal that his Harvard business didn't really do much for him?
I'm not sure that would be true in his case. Wasn't it in medicine?
I'm sorry.
Your degree from Harvard is in what field?
Business.
In business?
Yes.
Well, he's
But
now in
my-
business running a bank, right?
Yeah,
So-
but my question again was, is formal education really needed to become an entrepreneur?
I think it depends.
Are entrepreneurs
Yeah.
born, or do you train them to become one?
The answer is yes. So here's what I'd say. I'd have answered the question you asked a little while ago a little differently. And I'd say there are 2 things I see in entrepreneurs, and both because of running TIE Atlanta, which is the chapter of the world's largest entrepreneurship nonprofit. We have 13,000 members worldwide. We see it and talk with a lot of entrepreneurs. And then also because I invest in early stage startups, we talk to a lot of people who start businesses, scale businesses. Here's what I'd say, and I think it's not different from what got said before, but here's what I see differently. I think an entrepreneur in that regard, and hence I'll come to the question of your business education or your education, is a risk taker. I worked for 28 years for other people, for corporations that were great organizations, IBM and Xerox and so on. And by the way, I think you can do well in those organizations. But until you're ready to take a risk and take it all on your own, perhaps with co-founders, I think that's what differentiates the person who's going to move from being a business person to being an entrepreneur. And then I think by the way, I'd say one of the best books to read about risk-taking is a book called Failing Forward. I think part of the problem we always think is you got to you be successful at everything you do. It's how do you learn from things that you're not successful at in that regard. So having said all of that, I don't think anybody been to a class at any college that you've ever been to on risk-taking? The answer is no, right? So in that regard, education's not critical for your success in business. It's how you work with others, how you have empathy with your customers. I mean, it's all those what I call soft skills that are as important as the hard skills of finance or marketing, et cetera. So while I think it's not necessarily critical, I do think that what colleges do, having been a professor for a long time, is that it gives you the ability to think through and put processes that are repeatable in place. I don't think you want in your business and edible arrangements every day to start a brand new product line, right? Because you want to get the current products to be the ones that customers give you feedback about. So in that regard, education can be useful, but not absolutely mandatory.
That's good to know. Thank you so much. So Sam, Steve Harvey in his 7 Successful Habits of a Successful Person states one of it is having the end in mind. And it's always good to know where you want to take a specific initiative with the goals and objectives. But as a founder, or probably a non-technical founder, what are the steps one should take? And I'm sure there are tech companies here for software as a service or as a product as a software to become a successful entrepreneur, or the steps to become a successful entrepreneur.
Good question. So, yeah, I get this question a lot, and in the past 3 years, I've met a lot of non-technical people who are wanting to start a SaaS-based product, and the hurdle they come across is not just developers, it's more the technical market, the technical landscape. How do I go about approaching developers? How do I go about approaching other technical companies that I need to collaborate with, whether it be getting APIs or trying to find a technical model or infrastructure. So it's really important. What I tell anyone who comes to me first for an app development project, what I tell them to do is go build a business plan, because a business plan forces you to do that research, the market research, the technical research, the background on the project. And with that, they learn before the culture right now is that fail fast, fail quick. I am against that culture. Experience with over 40 startups, building projects. I advise my startups to not fail fast, do your research, talk to people like me, talk to other mentors at the Atlanta Tech Village, get advice from a technical, not just a technical standpoint, from a market research and business standpoint as well, and build a background on paper, prove it on paper, sell it on paper before you put a dime down. So that's my advice to a non-technical person who's trying to build a SaaS-based product.
How did you come about to start this business, starting this business, AppZoro?
Yeah, so basically I come from a business background, and I did my undergrad in computer science. In my senior year of college, I wanted to get involved in a tech business, but I didn't know what to do and where to start. So I figured I would start a services company, and with that, I would learn with so many projects that we built, I would learn how to build a SaaS product, how to market it, how to go about building a SaaS business, and that's what I've been doing. So we have in-house products that now we're starting to build based on our experience, our connections in the market. So yeah, that's one of the major reasons I started this business, is to learn more about the landscape.
Thank you so much, Sam. So, Lucy, most of us are built upon success most of the time. It's hard for us to take failures. We talked about it a little bit earlier. As a woman in tech, when you start talking about technology, do you get raised eyebrows, like a woman in technology? Do you see the bias in that sector where you're trying to enter into the healthcare with the technology? Because usually they envision it's a person, it's a man, it's a male, he's been a CEO of a company and all that. So how do you get about that bias? How can the community nurture more female entrepreneurs in the technology sector?
Yeah, so I think, certainly I have every anecdote about the bias. It's real, it's out there. I do think there are places where you play this to your advantage. Like when I go to a big healthcare investing conference and I'm looking for someone and we're like, texting or LinkedIn messaging and he's like, I'm the guy in the blue blazer. And I'm like, I'm the woman. It makes it a lot easier to find each other. But it's interesting. Before I started the company, I had worked in venture capital before going into healthcare, and then came back out of medicine and decided not to practice. Thought I would go back to venture capital, and I went and interviewed with a big firm, HIG. They have offices here in Florida. And on the website, there were 12 guys, all with, no offense, Harvard MBAs, all with the same blue shirt on. And I go and interview, and he's like, well, you don't have an MBA. And I said, well, none of you are doctors and none of you have PhDs. So why do I need an MBA what about diversity? And so I think that's all of us, we as humans, and I think we as women, to the earlier point, sometimes have a little harder time advocating for ourselves because, I was brought up here in Atlanta and I was sort of brought up not to do that, not to brag about myself, not to, and I have had to have a lot of coaching from my team and others to introduce myself as doctor, for instance. So I started a healthcare technology company, and I would never introduce myself that way because I'm not practicing as a doctor. I'm leading a technology company. But I think often I was not given the benefit of the doubt. And so people would, after listening to me, say, well, what do you know about this? And then I say, well, actually a whole lot, And whereas I would see men in the field get a little bit more of the benefit of the doubt of, well, he's talking with great expertise, he must know something about this. So I think there are just things like that you have to realize, the inherent bias that we all bring to certain situations and figure out how to proactively engage with that. And
has the situation changed since you initiated this company? Do you see the change in the thoughts and behaviors that more women are getting accepted into this field of entrepreneurship?
There's certainly a lot of discussion about it, and I spend a lot of time in those circles too, in women entrepreneurship, women funding women, and so I probably see more of it because I engage more specifically in those areas because we all have to look as entrepreneurs for where can you find advantage, where can you find a little leeway. One of the venture funds who invested in my company invests in women-led companies, right? So that's why they made the investment in us. But I don't know. I think there's some generational change that probably has to happen.
Okay. We don't know how many here are already women, female entrepreneurs, or someone who's aching to become one. What's the one sentence you want to tell them? And those, because it's a recorded session, there are so many who are going to watch. What's that one sentence you want to tell them that it's okay, or think twice?
No, I would never tell anybody, women, minority, anyone, to think twice because of who they are about being an entrepreneur. I think being an entrepreneur is believing in yourself, believing in your idea, being ready for the fact that you're going to be told no so many ways you could never imagine that you could be told no, and you just have to kind of keep putting one foot in front of the other.
I like those 3 words, believe in yourself. Yeah. Thank you so much, Lucy. So, Dr. Neal, I've always appreciated your story all the time. You have so much wisdom to share. And what has been the most important part of your entrepreneurial journey? When you are an entrepreneur or a business person, it's not just your family you're taking care of. I'm sure there are 50 more families that are dependent on you, on the decisions you make. So if you take something to a failure, you've impacted those 50 families' lives. I want to know what keeps you awake at night. How do you focus yourself from being pulled into 100 different things?
Okay.
It's a lot of questions, but I
Good
think
question. I led the life of a cardiologist, being on call all the time, 24/7 for 30 years.
And you can talk to the audience.
And so I learned a lot how to take care of the patients, how to diagnose on time and treat them. And at the same time, I started the bank. And about 65 families depend on me who work for the bank. And over the years, I learned you are better off being on the business than in the business. And there are three kinds of business people. You are a owner-operator, or an operator. So initially, I was the operator. Then I became the owner-operator for a few years, and now I'm a pure owner. That way, you can always tell the people what I'm looking for, what needs to be done from a 30,000 feet level. And that has worked good for me. I know very little about the inner workings of the bank. And I have all kind of specialists who work, and they know 100 times more than what I do. And so I rely on them. You hire the right people, pay them 125, 150% of what the market pays, and get 2 to 3 times of what a normal person does. And that has worked extremely well for me. For example, for my CEO, we're a $500 million bank. Probably I pay him the salary of a $1 billion bank. So that has worked very, very well for me.
They're very grateful and thankful, and you're right. If you want the success, I think the team that's in the company really says it all. So you've got it right. It looks like you have all the smart people around you, even though you're not into the operations.
I'm surrounded by extremely smart people, smarter than I am.
Very nice. Thank you. That's a skilled leadership in itself. Thank you. And Chantel, so Sam talked about find time to get a business plan done, do your research. That's not usually a typical scenario in entrepreneurship. People get to their business plan even after 3 years or 5 years, then they realize they need a business plan. They're just so aching to do and put their research and do what they want to. What is one thing that you would advise from the legal standpoint to make sure, whether they have their business plan or not, some of those forms to have ready, even though they want to keep procrastinating it?
Right, so I would say, and I am an employment lawyer, so my background is advising and representing companies in all aspects of the employment relationship. And so for entrepreneurs, usually they call us when there's a problem. Somebody has gone to the Department of Labor and tried to claim unemployment, but they have been classified as an independent contractor for the last 2 years. And so those are the calls that we absolutely can help you on, but it would have been better had you called us on the front end. Because when people are starting businesses, usually they have limited capital, and so you're making hard decisions about how to classify people, how to pay people, right? But as we just learned, absolutely, if you pay over the market rate, you will get loyalty in return. If you pay at least at the market rate or at what is expected and pay taxes, you will avoid heartache in the long run. So I would say just making sure you're correctly classifying your employees as employees or independent contractors, to make sure you're withholding applicable taxes on the state, federal level, and some localities have taxes. And of course, you want to protect your ideas, right? So, we have so many situations where people hire people to work for them, and they're kind of doing their own work on the side. And then they leave, and you're like, wait, that idea, you did this while you were working for me, it's my idea. Well, they didn't sign anything, so they can take that idea and take it to their next employer. So having those confidentiality agreements, having those agreements saying that they turn over all the rights of the work that they're doing while they're working for you, and definitely making sure that you're correctly classifying them will save you some heartache on the back end.
Very nice. Is there any recent success stories that you can remember, an entrepreneur where legal has helped them from falling into a worse situation? Or are those the cases you don't see much?
We usually get the cases where they're already in trouble, just being honest, right? But the sooner you call us, the better. And I will say that, I have one of my best friends, right? She, I think, prepared me for entrepreneurs because she has had her own nonprofit since we were in college. And so being in the nonprofit space, she definitely has gone through the process of learning whether or not to hire independent contractors or to hire employees. And, she was operating in DC and Maryland and Atlanta. And so she would call me after she had already tried to handle it herself. And I'm like, well, had you called me 2 weeks ago, we would be in a totally different situation. So now, as soon as she gets the letter from the Department of Labor, she calls me. So call your legal advisor. You should have a trusted legal advisor. And call them as soon as the issue arises, because 9 out of 10, whoever's on the other side, either they have some legal expertise or they're consulting with someone. And so you're going into it thinking that you can resolve it quickly, and the more time passes, the worse the situation usually gets. So I would say I can be more successful and help you be more successful if you call me early, even if you're already having an issue.
Thank you so much.
And I'll put in a plug. We're down at ATDC, where there are a lot of small companies, and a lot of people I know have gotten in trouble over this classification issue of who's a W-2, who's a 1099, oh my gosh, what a mess.
Absolutely. And it is hard because you go from, they just work from home like 5 to 10 hours a week to, now we have office space and they're in the office, 40 hours a week. Well, that's a big difference, based on the DOL, the Department of Labor's view of whether that person is an independent contractor as opposed to an employee. So as you grow and as you try to get more structured, just know that you need to revisit those relationships.
Or even in adding whether they're even eligible for medical benefits if they're a full-time person versus a 29-hour salaried.
Absolutely. And also, so I said you should have them sign a confidentiality agreement. You should have them sign over the rights to the work that they do for you. But what you can't have them sign in certain states, and really nationally it's frowned upon. If you're an independent contractor, you can't have them sign a non-compete, right? And so they can work for you and go across the street or to the next cubicle and work for your competitor because they were an independent contractor. Whereas if they were an employee, you can have them sign that non-compete. And then they can't take the information that they just learned on the job from you and go across the street to your competitor. So that's a big distinction that people lose when they're just getting started.
Thank you, Chantel. So, Antonio, why do people come to you? Why do entrepreneurs come to you? And if you can quickly engage us or educate us on the quick different forms of the loans, venture capitalist, angel investor, and then you have all that. Then you have families loaning money. Is that a good idea? So that was one of the questions asked by the attendees. But tell us, what are the deal points that you're looking from entrepreneurs once you accept and say yes to the loan? Are there any deal points that you're looking for?
Yes. Well, definitely one, you was here already about the business plan for any bank or for any source of financing, investor, angel investor, they're going to need to see a business plan. So make sure that if you don't have one, you need to really start working on a business plan, because they're going to show to us as a bank or to an investor that you have done your homework. You know the market, you know the demographic, you know the competition, so you kind of know what you want to do. And unfortunately for many people, that's not the most fun thing to do, but definitely something that is important to do, and there's a lot of resources and incubators and people that can help you to put that together. So that's a thing that I'm going to ask. Keep that in mind, that for anybody who is going to start a new business, it's always going to be a challenge to get a business loan for a bank, because banks normally, they want to see last 2 years history. They want to see if you're making revenue. Hopefully you're making already profit. So it's always going to be a more challenge. However, it's not impossible, especially if you have been working with a strong business plan. We normally, ACE is a little bit different. We are not a bank. We are what is called a CDFI, which is a community development financial institution. So we don't compete with banks. Actually, if somebody has a bank relation with Quantum Bank, we also want to do is we want to complement, because sometimes the bank cannot do the loan because you have been in business for less than 2 years, your credit score, which we can talk a little bit about that, your credit score maybe is not the best, so the bank can have some issues. So we can be a little bit more flexible to help you to get that business loan that you need, but we don't take any deposit. So you keep the deposit relation with a bank, and then I always tell my client, it's important if you have a business relation already, you want to keep growing that, because maybe you go back to the bank, maybe in 2 years or 3 years, you keep growing your business, so you will be able to get a bigger loan. Now it's not with ACE, but with the bank. So you definitely need to put money into the business. Bank will not gonna finance 100% of the project. Just for you, I mean, as an estimate, you're normally gonna need at least 20% of the total cost of the project coming from equity from you, cash from the business, from you, for anybody that is a business partner on this deal, and have to be cash. So sometimes people have that money, but sometimes they need to get a small business loan for family and friends. My advice is always, if you're dealing with family and friends, in my opinion, that relation is always first than the business. So make sure, again, have that business plan, because you want to approach to those people as an investor. And for those people, sometimes it's even more important to have the business plan, because they are not professional investors. Or every time that you meet with an uncle, with an aunt, in a family reunion, they're going to keep asking you, how's the business going? When I get my money back? They are not used to that. But if you show them a business plan from the beginning, show expectations, so you have done a homework, so definitely that will help them to understand and create the expectation when that money is going to get paid. Of course, that the difference between a bank or a CDFI loan and an investor is, with a bank, you have to make monthly payment of principal and interest for the loan that we're going to provide to you. So it doesn't matter if you make money or not this month, we're going to be expecting to get our monthly payment for the loan, versus an investor, an angel investor, is more like an equity, so they will not expect any monthly payment. They're going to be expecting share of your profit at the end of the year. So maybe if you don't have any profit, there's not going to be any share. So especially for technology service company at the beginning, sometimes have a bank loan, it can hurt your cash flow, because it takes some time for you to build enough cash flow to get all the overhead expenses, salaries, everything. So that's why many technology and service companies start at the beginning with investor equity money, and then when they grow, they will get the business loan. Because again, you need to make, if you had a bank loan with a Quantum Bank, any bank, or with CDFI, you need to keep in mind that now you have to make those payments every month. So, in general, the credit score is a big important thing for us, especially if you are a new business, there is no any credit history for the business. So the way that you handle your personal credit is going to be the way normally that you will manage the business credit. Anybody that owns 20% or more in the company will have to personal guarantee, which means the bank is going to review the personal credit. So if you are in business with somebody that have a terrible credit, believe me, that's going to reduce the chance for you to get a business loan, even that your personal credit may be 750 or even close to 800. If the other person has 500 in credit score or 550, you better have that conversation before, because if you plan to go to a bank, so that will hurt your possibility. So make sure that you have that 20% in cash for the project, because we cannot finance 100%, and for the loan, normally we want to request collateral, which means it's the last source that we can get paid if the business closes. And I'm not going to get in detail about that, but normally things that you're going to buy, equipment, furniture, real estate, we can take as a collateral. ACE can be a little bit more flexible than banks, but at the same time, the type of loan that we're going to do is going to be relatively smaller than the bank. I think, did they answer most of the questions? Because I know that.
Yeah, no, I think you gave a lot of good information, but 1 second. So thank you, Representative Bruce. Thank you for being here this evening. I just mentioned earlier about all the points that you were fighting for.
Okay.
So let's give it just up for him that he did his legislative session, and he still made it to join us. I'm coming right back to you after I ask this full question. Are you okay? I just ask people to be careful on the orange seat.
It's kind of a little while.
You can just sit, yeah, you can just sit once you're sitting comfortably, or you can just reduce the.
Okay.
Okay, so Antonio, you talked about business plan. Everybody doesn't have that time, energy, and the feasibility to create that business plan. Sometimes it costs a lot, but the person knows everything to get it to success, except he can't put those in wordings. How detailed a business plan is company like yours looking for? And I'm doing this because I want to consider everyone doesn't have the resources.
Yes.
That's why they're an entrepreneur.
Okay.
And how detailed a business plan is companies like yours looking for?
Yeah, before the business plan, people were looking for 20, 30 pages business plan. To be honest, nobody have time now to read those. So as long as you have a good narrative part with tell me about the concept, tell me about what you're looking to do, the type of service, but especially the financial projections and looking to me how you're going to generate revenue, all the expenses, and how you're going to make profit in this loan. So in my opinion, banks normally is going to take more detail on the financial projection part of the business. I just want to add also, before I worked for ACE, I used to work for the University of Georgia, a small business development center for 7 years, business consultant, and that's a free and confidential services that is sponsored by the federal government through the SBA and by the state of Georgia, so there is 17 centers. So those business consulting, they provide a free and confidential business consulting for you to help you with the business plan, because yes, that's not the most fun part to do for many business, but they have access to demographic report, they have access to industry report, they have access to competitor analysis. And those are free services that can help you to put together that business plan. So especially with the financial projection, which is something that we're gonna be looking for, we want to see that the financial projections are conservative, but at the same time are realistic. We want to make sure that why are you projecting those numbers? Sometimes when people are going to start a franchise, they like to use the franchise number, but sometimes we like to challenge those numbers because maybe the location that you plan to is different than the other location. So try to do the narrative part in a way that we can understand, but put a lot of emphasis on the financial projection, because that's something that we're going to be looking for, how we're going to get paid along.
So, okay, thank you. That's a very valid point. A new business person who is an entrepreneur should visit a local SBA center to put together a business plan, and that's free service.
Yes.
Thank you so much for that information. So, Representative Bruce, thank you for being here. You are also a committee member for the business committee in the state legislative committees. How can government help in the entrepreneurial capitalism, or how can government support more entrepreneurs? For example, Sam here wants to get into government, for example, he wants to get into government projects. But the bureaucracy and the apathy, it just doesn't, like, for a competitive person, government is not the place, and you don't want that to happen in the government. So what are you doing? What is the local government doing to get supporting more entrepreneurs?
Well, when you deal with this, and first, let me again apologize for not being here at the beginning, but we just got through and I sped over here.
Thank you.
Fortunately, I didn't get a ticket, but
We talked about the ticket earlier.
Yeah,
so
but you have 4 levels of government. It's not just state government. You have federal, you have state, you have county, then you have city. And each one does things differently. And, I represent the state portion of it. We just approved, as a matter of fact, today, a budget of about $26 billion. Most of it goes towards education, but there are a lot of contracts in there. And these contracts, you have to, bid for the contracts. Unfortunately, and we are fighting this now, most of those contracts, less than 1% of those contracts go to minority-owned businesses. And so we obviously feel that that's inappropriate, and we're trying to do things to force the government to open up that process so that more people can bid and more people can be involved. But you're not going to get rich off of state contracts. And if you do, you might have to change to a yellow suit. But the reality is that there is money to be made, but you have to get on the list of qualified businesses. You have to be able to show that you can do the work that needs to be done, that you can get the bonding, that you can get the insurance to do the work that needs to be done. We do need at the state level to improve to make it easier for you to do that, but that's the process right now.
Okay, and how else can, should entrepreneurs get involved in the policy level?
Absolutely. You know, you need to know who your elected officials are at all levels. And, you know, people have a tendency to think that we're unapproachable, but most of us love to hear from you. And, you know, I give out my phone number to any constituent that wants it. And don't send us a whole bunch of emails because we get thousands of them, and yours will probably get lost in there. So pick up the phone, call. All of us go to grocery stores. All of us go to, you know, get our hair cut. All of us go to the same places that you go.
Do we follow you?
Some of them do. Some of them do. You know, I can't go in the barbershop and get my hair cut without having a conversation with about 10 people. And, but I don't mind it, and most of us don't mind it. There's some that will avoid it, but those are ones that you shouldn't vote for. And I'm just being straight up, you know. So find out who your state rep is, your state senator, who your federal people are. If you live inside of a city, who your mayor is, your city council people, and let them know what your concerns are. Just if I could, there's, you know, legislation gets started in a lot of ways. I gave a speech at a school, elementary school. At the end of the speech, I was telling the kids how the bills get passed. At the end of the speech, I got a call from a 10-year-old boy that said, I heard how bills get passed, now I want you to get one passed for me. And I was surprised because he was 10 years old. I said, well, what do you have an interest in? He said, I'll tell you when you come back to the school. I said, okay. I get back to the school, and he had all of the teachers, the principal, everybody all lined up in the cafeteria, and he wanted to tell everybody what this bill was going to be. And basically he said, I want my parents to be able to come to school to see how I'm doing without their job being put at risk. And when we checked into it, the company that his parents worked for did not have a policy, a leave policy, and if they didn't come to work, they didn't get paid, and if they didn't come enough times, they got fired. So we started a project at the school where the entire school got involved in this bill. And the bill came to be known as the Parent Protection Act. And the bill passed.
Wow.
And it was started by a 10-year-old. So if a 10-year-old can get one started, anybody in this room should be able to do the same thing by just knowing who your legislator is.
Great, thank you so much, Representative. And so, Eric, growing a business can have a sort of a lot of trade-offs, right? But as an entrepreneur or a serial entrepreneur, what has been non-negotiable for you? What is that you could just never give up? And tell us about the marketing nowadays. Is it more push marketing working nowadays, or what's the stage in this era?
So two questions. So the non-negotiable was always time. You don't get that back. So if there's something that you're going to do, you should go do it. And if you're going to go do it well. So I always buy the expensive tickets to the concert, the better place. I mean, you're just going to do it once. So experiences and time, those are the non-negotiables. If you have the opportunity to do something, you should put it aside. I was invited to the Masters 5 years in a row, and I didn't go the first 4 years, but that's because I didn't know that it was a big deal. Ha, 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 ha. And I tell my business partner the 5th year, he's like, what, you've rejected it? That's not a good example. But typically people let the company get in their way, and then they don't go to their kids' play or something. And it's just so, that stuff that's non-negotiable. That's non-negotiable. And marketing, because I own a marketing and operations company, thank you, very much is about educating your customer. It's really not necessarily about push or pull, it's about education. And the mistake that I see companies do is they tell people what they do, they don't tell them why, and they don't educate them. We're all smart enough now that we can go figure it out, and it's about basically getting the attention of that person A goldfish has an 8-second attention span, and the human being has 7 because of the number of messages and things that we're seeing. So you have to interrupt them, and you have to educate them on something. And if you educate your customer, they will buy from you every day of the week. So it's not about the repetitive message. It's not about push or pull. It's about a mix of all of those things.
Very nice. So I have a few questions, sort of a myth. You have to tell me yes or no, and these are questions for the audience, right? So if you say yes, raise your hands. If no, you can keep it down. Entrepreneurs don't quit. Yes or no? Yes. So you're saying entrepreneurs don't quit? No. So entrepreneurs do quit. Am I right? Because the entrepreneurship, they quit and then they pull it back up, right? So can I say that they're wrong?
They don't quit. They may just get, stumble for a second, and then they find another way to get it done. You don't quit. You never quit. If you quit, it's over. And but you may run into a hurdle. You may run into a situation where you got to go a different way, but you don't quit.
Well, I think maybe what you're saying too is, there's a definition between quitting and insanity. So you don't keep doing the thing, nobody will buy it from you. Oh, and don't try to sell it to your friends and family because they're not going to buy it from you. So it's that, right?
Right.
You don't want to do it, and you don't want to be insane, but there's probably something. It may just be a twist or.
Maybe you want to try it a different strategy.
Yeah, here at Atlanta Tech Village, they would call it a pivot.
Right. Entrepreneurs
But if
know,
you've pivoted 30 times, that might be a problem too.
right. So entrepreneurs know exactly what they want and how to get it. Yes or no? Yes. So entrepreneurs know what they want, okay. But they don't know how to get it? They always don't know, so 50-50, right? Okay. Entrepreneurs are their own boss. How many say yes on this one? They're their own boss. No, because your customers become your boss. And you have the government too, right?
And a board, and investors.
And a board, and your investors become your boss, right? They're going to be behind you, what's going on. So I think that's the myth new entrepreneurs have to get out of their mind, that they're never going to be their own boss. There's always something, and that's the reality of life as well, right? Okay, so I have more questions later, but Satya, coming to you, how much has your family supported your work as an entrepreneur, or did your friends really support you, or were they always doubting you? But basically what I'm getting to is, how did you manage work-life balance?
When I first started, before I started, I had 100 friends. We used to go to the same parties. We used to discuss the same social situations. Everything's going with the same frequency. Suddenly, my road changed to entrepreneurship. And here comes, I have to pick up the kids, I have to do this, that, and the other thing, plus hire people, get the business up and running by itself. Lots of changes. So here goes my social life on the back burner. Now, after a year, when I get back to all these people, the frequency is not there. It's not there anymore because the frequency changes. So now I am looking for people who can actually talk to me about the business side of things, what their challenges are. But my other friends who are in the corporate side, they don't know what I'm talking about. It's like I'm an Indian in Italy. I have no idea, right? So yes, there are changes, and then you go into these networking groups, and everybody's talking the same language, and they're looking for the same problems that you're dealing with in a day-to-day businesses, like operations-wise, or the funding-wise, or the taxes-wise. We are talking about the same thing. That's awesome. So your field changes as you grow in entrepreneurship. But I do keep in touch with other people, other social lives, and yes, that's a different stream, this is a different stream, and then your kids' parents, friends' parents, and that's another stream. Yes, the whole social life has a rainbow. Let's put it that way. All different colors. And it's a challenge, yes. You can't just pick and choose one color.
Sure, yeah, definitely. It's getting to that balance, and each one has their own strategies. So thank you, Satya, for sharing that. So, Dr. Paul, why do entrepreneurs fail? Why do businesses fail?
How many people here have had a business fail? We'll do a poll real time. So there's 5, 6. You ready? Okay. Other than the obvious answer, you ran out of money, right? The real obvious answer. And I tell people that all business people ought to really keep 3 things in mind: revenue, revenue, and revenue. They go off and work on a lot of other things and tend to think of revenue later on. So that's sort of an almost too obvious an answer. I think it fails if, in fact, it depends what your schedule is or what your objective is. I think we heard about doing a business plan. And in today's world, I think business plans come in all shapes and sizes. But at least you have to have a personal plan. What's your personal plan for the business? Do you plan to have, I'm going to ask you, how many franchises do you want to have in the next 5 years? Is 2 enough?
For now.
For now. Well, see, in her mind then, success is having 2 successful franchises, right? For someone else, it might be, I want to run to 20. So you got to decide what success looks like, and so you get to decide what failure looks like, I think. And I think clearly, if you don't look at the financials, to me, I mean, when we invest, clearly we're not writing checks because we don't want our money back. So to that extent, if you're getting other people to put money in, or you're looking to, I think somebody said, if you've got 65 people working in your business, you ought to think of what is it that I'm doing to generate more and profitable revenue. By the way, I even run a nonprofit, Thai Atlanta, where we tell everybody, every program's got to be in the black. So if you just think of it that way, that doesn't have to be the only reason, but it's got to be a reason, because without that, you don't have any lifeblood to the business. So it seems almost too obvious an answer, isn't it?
No, this is pretty good, what you've been telling us.
I think a lot of players or people who are founders, they fall in love with their product, they fall in love with the marketplace, they fall in love with the technology, and don't think, I think Sam said it, about the other side of the coin, which is the same coin, which is from a business standpoint, is it really reaching the success I want to have, right? That's more important, I think, the personal success. And hence, if that doesn't happen, then I think in many ways you failed, right?
Sure. So, Dr. Paul, as a follow-up, you're also a partner in the 1111 Ventures, which is a venture capital company.
Right.
So what is the minimal amount that people have come to you? Just tell us the minimal so we understand what a venture capital is looking for.
Well, first of all, let me sort of just give you a little bit of background. So you don't come to a venture capital firm before you've gone through what we call bootstrapping, which is your own money or generating money out of the business. Or then you next go to friends and family, because that's actually like 60% of all businesses use friends and family. That's how I started with our first business way back 20 years ago. And then I think the third one is you go to angels, where I think the guy's going to talk with you a little later on. They've been approaching angels where typically the checks might be anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000, or they've got an angel who's putting $75,000, and then you come to a venture capital firm. So just to put that in perspective, and then venture capital firms are of every size. I mean, ones that write checks of $100,000 to multi-million. In our particular case, I'd say people come to us looking for probably between $250,000 and $500,000. That's sort of our sweet spot. And once people get to know that, then we don't want other people who want $100,000 or $10 million wasting our time with theirs. So you got to be real clear about what you're going to invest in. But that, I think you're asking me
Yes.
when you'd come to our firm. If you wanted to go to a firm here in Buckhead, more than likely, you're probably looking for $1 million to $2 million. More than likely. So you got to understand what kind of firm and what they invest in. Right?
Great, thank you. That helps. So
I just want to add on to what Dr. Lopez said regarding business failure. One of the reasons that I've come across is there's just been so much propaganda around the unicorns of today's, the Facebooks, the MySpace, or not the MySpace failed, Snapchats and the Ubers. Entrepreneurs these days are more like entrepreneurs. They just read about those stories at 2 a.m. and 8 a.m. Here, they're here, hey, I want to start a startup. No, it doesn't work that way. So that's why 99% of these businesses fail.
Sure. So I didn't know if you read my next question, but it was going to be on the similar field that does
He attended the phone call.
does the entrepreneur's idea have to be unique, or they say sometimes it's luck. You have to be in the product at the right time at the right place.
Yes, you absolutely have to have the right product and the right strategy. No, it
Does it
doesn't
have to be unique?
It doesn't have to be unique. There's so many examples in the market. Like I said, Facebook wasn't the first one to market. There were 20 other social media applications. Facebook got it right. Facebook approached the smaller target market first, grew big in that, approached the universities, approached the college towns, got the millennials in, and then they expanded out. So there is a strategy. WeWork is a big one. WeWork is a $40 billion company, started 9 years ago. Regis started over 25 years ago, and they're just a $4 billion company. So there's so many examples out there where they're not the first, but they got it right because of their strategy.
Sure. So before I want to ask Lucy the question is, Lucy, till 2 years ago, I had never imagined I would get into the entrepreneurial field. That's just me. I was too scared of taking risks. I've taken many risks in life, but just I'd always imagined my life to be that every month check comes in. I make sure the family is in good has good medical benefits. Never thought I would get into the entrepreneurial field. It amazes me. Is this the same person I knew 2 years ago? Now, if you gave me a 6-figure salary and asked me to come back to a job, I would say no, thank you. Because I have enjoyed being in the entrepreneurial space, my own boss, but of course even entrepreneurs have other bosses as well. But just this chai and chats, these are at no cost to attend these, is my passion. So the entrepreneurship company is allowing me to do the social entrepreneurship as well. So sort of balancing me out with the income, but also continuing my passion. So if that's something you've been thinking about, at some point, you need some strong mentors to back you up, to see your potential, and say, this is how you do it, go do it. So I would certainly ask you to consider that, who that person is, and not just let that idea die within yourself. At some point, you have to be ready to come out and further that. Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, like Eric said earlier about why someone starts a business, and there's a story with someone, with everyone, and there's a story with me, but mentorship, reason number 2 and 3 that I am in entrepreneurship are sitting in the audience. So my parents, I've seen them go through the ups and downs, and learning from that is a big reason, and they're big mentors. And when you go back to saying that our entrepreneurs, are they born or are they nurtured? I'm a strong believer that they're nurtured. Because if you do a poll in the world, there are more unhappy people than there are happy people. But I don't see everyone starting a company or succeeding at that. It's only the 1%. So you have to have the mentorship.
Great, and I would like to thank my business partner, Mr. Rajan Luthra, at the end, for continuing to believing in my skills and allowing these chai and chats to happen. Because of your push about my talents, I'm able to continue further, so thank you. My question to you, Lucy, was, when did you consider yourself a success? I know I asked you, are you happy, earlier, but.
Just keep pushing on this. Yeah, I mean, I think it comes back to the point of, you define your own success, right? And I've had a very sort of wandering career path. I was a physicist, and then I went to work in venture capital, and then I became a doctor to be an academic clinician, and then I walked away to start a technology company. And I think what that helped me realize about myself is sort of this never satisfied gene is who I am, and that doesn't mean that I don't feel successful. And I think in, every startup, every company, like you have this feeling one day of like, oh, I've created something bigger than myself. And to me, that's the moment of success as an entrepreneur, is it's not about my idea or how many hours in the day I can work, but I've actually created something sustainable and, seeing a team grow around that and thinking if I walked away today or something happened to me, this idea would still come to life and would. So that's probably the success moment.
You have a good succession plan.
Yeah, and it sort of has become bigger than me, right? It's organizationally, you see, a team grow and take on the lifeblood of an idea, and
Yes,
that's the best, most exciting moment.
Very nice. And I think Dr. Neal, she's describing your story where you are not into the operations, but from a 30,000 field level. So thank you, Lucy, for that answer. Dr. Neal, why did you choose this type of business?
You mean the banking business?
Yes.
Okay. When I was practicing cardiology, let's say I take a vacation for a week, and I'm out of the office. There is no revenue coming in, but all my staff are working. I had to pay them. So I'm also paying for all the other expenses. And I realized if you become something like a bank, whether I'm here, whether I'm in India, whether I'm in Europe, it doesn't matter. People continue to pay their interest 24/7, and other people are there to continue the business for me. So it's the leveraging effect of having a bank is different than having a medical practice. So that's why I chose to run a bank.
Thank you so much. Chantel, can you tell quickly the audience the characteristics of a successful entrepreneurial team? Do all the people in the team have to be in the entrepreneurial spirit, or is it just the leader?
You definitely need some diversity in your team, starting, of course, with your trusted legal advisor. You need, when I think about entrepreneurs, I usually think about people who I would describe as visionaries, right? You're the big idea people, you daydream all day, you're always coming up with these amazing things that you want to accomplish. I am not that person. I am more of I can get you from point A to B, from point B to C, from point C to D. You need the operational person, right? Not necessarily the lawyer, but you need somebody on the ground actually dealing with the day-to-day business. You need some business consultants, right? You need a marketing person. So you need to have a well-rounded team when you're getting started. And, people don't like to consult lawyers because they think, oh, it's going to cost too much, or I don't need you yet. But it's so much better to do it on the front end. And don't think of us as the person that's going to tell you no, right? Most lawyers will tell you that we are risk averse as a profession. And so, but when we're working, if you find the right lawyers, especially if they're familiar with working with small companies or with startups, the goal is not to tell you no, even if that's what we immediately think in our head. It's to say, okay, tell me why you want to do this, and kind of talk it through with you to come up with creative solutions. And there are ways to be creative. Part of being a lawyer is arguing the gray, right? The law is black and white, but let's argue the gray. But if you come to me on the front end, we can creatively argue the gray. If you come to me on the back end, you're already, in the black or the white and in trouble. So I would just say you definitely need a diverse team. You need some different people helping you to think things through and just to go down. Everybody has their own checklist, right? And so you need all those checklists to be successful.
Thank you so much. So Antonio, as we started I'm giving a personal story. We just started with $200, okay? And we are able to show the vendorship. We are able to show the first year profit. Right now, we are in a stage we don't have a business plan. And this is the truth of 90% of the companies that you'll meet, right? But we know where we want to go. We've not put it in paper. But we are risk takers, so we know what's the next step. How should companies like ours who has no whatsoever, has not done business management, has not gone to school about business, is doing entrepreneurship now, how much people like me should know we should have in the beginning with us to make this a success? How should a person, I know it's through the business plan, but the reality is 90% of the entrepreneurs don't have a business plan. The 10% do. How do we know how much money we need to succeed?
Yes, and that's always an important question when I see many people planning to start a business, because sometimes they know how much they need to open a business, but they don't know how much they need to keep open or to run the business, which is most of the time is working capital. So what I tell my clients, especially the one that when I started, make sure that you have in your plan enough money not only to open, but to keep you open, because you have overhead expenses. Sometimes you have employees, you have rent, you have different monthly expenses that you have to cover. Doesn't matter how much is your revenue. So if you don't have enough revenue at the beginning, maybe it can take 3 months, maybe it can take 6 months. You need that working capital. So if you have been in business for at least 1 year, that shows at least even that your revenue has been enough to cover your overhead expenses, or your overhead expenses are really low, so you don't really need a lot of revenue. So in that point, show already that you have been in business. What are we going to be looking for? Yes, again, the business plan, don't get trapped in that business plan. They have to be 30 pages long. Sometimes it's just, now it's a lot of tools that you can use. In that case, we want to see, okay, where are you right now? How's your cash flow? Because remember, cash is different than profit. Sometimes you can make money. I remember a client that was looking to sell to Costco, and she was excited, but she didn't realize that Costco paid her like 45 to 60 days. So you need to have money today to do that project, to do that production. So if you are being in a business already, we're going to be looking your cash flow. We're going to be looking the revenue that you're generating, if you're making profit. And if you're making profit, that is enough to pay the next step of the loan that you need, it's going to be more, we're going to be more able to do it than songs for the beginning. I remember ACE, we start from loans, from microloans, which is $15,000. So we go to $15,000 to $1 million. Sometimes for banks, it's very difficult to do those small loans, and that's what the micro lenders do. It's anything that is below $50,000 is considered a micro loan, so we can help. So don't think sometimes that you need, $100,000, $200,000. Maybe you don't need that right now. Maybe you need a small loan, so you don't need to get too much debt until you keep growing, and maybe in the second year, 2 years, you get a bigger loan. So, but yeah, for those of you who have been in business already, we're going to be looking for if you're already past those 6 months, if you already are making profit, or how far are you to break even to make profit in the business, and hopefully get a business loan to help you to get to the next step.
Sure.
So in the startup and the VC world, we call it burn rate and runway. So how much runway you have to survive until your next client.
Sure. So I don't drink, but I'm planning to take Dr. Lopez and Dr. Neil and Antonio for a drink outside. And I'm putting it out there. Right, people. Yes or no? Entrepreneurs are usually rich. Entrepreneurship requires huge funding. Yes or no? Yes, someone said yes. Okay. Entrepreneurship is fun. Depends. Yeah, see, I see a very strong raise, 3 raised hands. It's fun. Definitely, yes. So let's go for the next 5 minutes with quick closing comments, closing thoughts from each of you, and then we have a few minutes closing comments from a couple of co-founders, and then we'll go for the Q&A. We started 10 minutes late, so I'm hoping it's okay to stay till 8:40. And please still feel free to continue to grab something to eat as we continue the session. Dr. Bruce, Representative Bruce, let's start with you. Quick 30-second closing thoughts on entrepreneurship and your professional engagement on it.
My thought, and I teach my kids the same thing, entrepreneurship to me is an opportunity to build wealth within your family that you can pass on from one generation to the next. You can't pass on a job, but you can pass on your business. And to me, that's the reason why I encourage my kids to be independent. My son owns his own trucking company. My daughter actually works for Google, and but she is learning, a lot at Google so that she can then leave there and start her own business and have the opportunity to pass wealth on from generation to generation.
Thank you. Yes or no to social entrepreneurship?
It depends. If you have a niche that allows you to be successful in that area, then I say go for it. My thought is that there's a lot of people trying that, and some of them we hear about maybe 10 or 15 of those companies, but it's probably thousands and thousands of people trying to do it. So, but I think that's just like any other business, that you try it, and if it works, you build it. If it doesn't, you try something else.
Thank you so much. Eric, closing thoughts?
I guess the thing that I would say is if you decide to go and be an entrepreneur, then you're ruined for life. You can never get a job. So you need to make sure you're making a very definitive decision. Like, that's it. Your resume will never make sense again. No one understands what you're going to do. When my daughter was applying for colleges, she had to indicate what her dad did for a living. And she put, I don't know. And at that time, my wife worked for the company running our finances, and it said, what does your mom do? She works for my dad. So it doesn't work well with the FAFSAs and the whatever stuff you have to fill out, which I actually wouldn't fill out for her. But
Is that true that mom works for dad, or does dad work for mom?
well, that's a good thing. We had offices, like she worked at the house and I worked at the office, and we were opening new offices, and she's like, I'm going to move into the office. I'm like, no, this is working well. This is good. Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you, Eric. Yeah. 30-second closing thoughts.
Entrepreneurship. Make sure you have the business plan before you start anything. Have a vision where you want to see yourself in 10 years and go for it. Have a plan where you want to do it, how you want to do it, what you're going to do about it, think about it, sleep with it, go for it.
Thank you.
This is a very practical piece. If any of you want to open up a business or scale a business in the technology area, we have what I think is the country's best, actually oldest incubator. It's called ATDC, so look up atdc.org. They have one of the best programs. In fact, I think it's called the Educate program. I think it's like $30 a month or something. But go follow through, because either, I'll end on the Nike theory of just do it or stop thinking about it, because you're not getting any younger, nor am I.
Thank you.
Well, for closing remarks, I just want to again thank the Tech Village for hosting us and thank Nazira for having us as sponsors. We at Absor Technologies do whatever we can to help startups and enterprises succeed in the technical arena. So we've been here for 3 years, amazing place. If you're a business and you want to come join, you can just talk to someone in the back or get more information from myself.
Great, thank you. And Lucy had to leave, so excuse her, but Dr. Neil, closing thoughts?
My thought on entrepreneurship is go for it. Like Sam said earlier, have a good plan ahead of time, think it through, do some marketing study, make sure that you have enough capital, and absolutely that's the way to go. My dad said when I finished medical school, never in your life work for somebody. Whether you make money or not, how much money you make, always work for yourself. So ever since I finished the medical school, I always worked for myself, and that has worked for me. And also think outside the box. One gentleman was asking me, when you reach a stage, how do you get to the next stage? And that's a very important point, because people start stagnating, and then it becomes a lifestyle business. So think outside the box and how to scale it. And there are several things that you can do to do that. I'll be glad to discuss about that.
Great, Chantel.
I would say do not let legal issues ruin your dreams. And so there's so many legal loopholes that small businesses get caught up in. And when you're talking about a very finite amount of money that you have to keep your business running, and you run into a $20,000 or $50,000 legal problem, that can kill your business. So do some legwork on the front end with a trusted legal advisor so your entrepreneur dreams can thrive.
Great, thank you. Antonio?
I always recommend whatever type of business you're planning to start, make sure that you have passion for that, because you're gonna have challenge in any type of business, but if you have passion what you're doing, that will definitely help you to overcome any of those steps. From the bank or the funding, make sure that you understand the process, because if you understand the process and you get prepared, make sure, the way that banks make money is giving loans, interest. So don't believe that the bank's not gonna give me any loans. Bank makes money giving business loans. The problem is sometimes if you don't understand the process, you can get frustrated. So get an advice, get a business consultant, be prepared, understand the process in that way, and talk to your bank about your future plans. Maybe it's not gonna be today, but maybe in the future you will get prepared. No other resources like ACE, maybe some micro lending, so you are better fit now to work with us, but a bank, but that way you always be prepared in the process.
Okay. Is okay? Everything? Okay. Thank you. So you're saying be prepared.
Be prepared, understand the process, so before you go to a bank, to be able to increase your possibility to get a loan.
Very nice, thank you. So before we go to the Q&A session, I would invite Manav and Sajal to come forward for the closing thoughts. You saw their background, and I sort of had them because they are co-founders. So sometimes things cannot be done alone. You might be the entrepreneur, but you need the other wheel, just like in a bicycle, to tag you along. And we're going to give you the mic. And
in fact, by the way, while they're getting set up, having a co-founder will make your life a whole lot easier. You think that you can do it on your own? The businesses we've seen, you can do it on your own, but it's more likely to be successful if you have a co-founder.
Very
To
nice.
divide out duties, I think.
Do you want to, you can just stand there wherever you want. And
Sure, I agree. This would be impossible alone. Hi, everyone. I'm Manav.
I'm Sajal, and we are the co-founder of Sabziwala. It's so real to be, in front of here. It's been about 2 years. I was part of this group, standing there, sitting, listening to the story about, co-founders, their journey, how they grew the business, what we can learn from them, and it's just amazing to be here.
Yeah, 2 years when we ideated Sabziwala, and if you all don't know what Sabziwala is, we are a grocery delivery service, and we specialize in Indian groceries. So if anybody needs their Indian groceries delivered, let us know. You can order online, and we'll deliver it to you. But yeah, 2017, we started the idea. We were going to events like this, going to Thai meetups, last year we launched, and it's been almost, I think next week will be a year since we launched, and it's been a really crazy ride. Entrepreneurship has its ups and downs, but I will say that starting in Atlanta is a great sandbox to do anything. The audience here, especially for us, there's a large Indian community, but the big deal is that there's a lot of good feedback. So Atlanta as a metro area really does, people do want to talk to you. You just need to know, and other cities may be the same, but you really, as long as you're talking to your customers, as long as you're wanting that feedback, you're open, you're transparent, people will, they want to talk, people want to talk. So just let them, and you'll be able, we made the service we are today because of our customers' feedback and because we listen to them. So that's the one thing I would say is really just listen to your customers, and they will tell you how you should run your business.
Yeah, and again, for 1 year, we have been growing 80% quarter over quarter. We are retaining 65% of the customer. part of it is because we're listening to our customer, we're improving every day, we want to make sure they are part of our decision making, because at the end of the day, we are here to serve our customers. As a startup, there are two audiences that you always have to deal with. Obviously, customer is the biggest part, and a lot of people pay emphasis on defining your customer, who your customer is going to be. But at the same time, you also have to define your investors. So Atlanta has been great for growing the business, but we have a challenge raising capital because Atlanta may not be the best place for B2C company like us to raise the capital, because the audience, the investor, is not that receptive to the audience of, to the idea of growing a B2C business. And in getting that into your mind really helps you plan ahead and save your time. End of the day, entrepreneurship is about how efficient you are, how valuable you are using your time. Because a lot of people don't realize time is a real asset that you have on you. And defining investors are really important. For us, we are doing a round right now, in a seed round, which is going really well. 80% of the money has come outside of Metro Atlanta. We wanted to raise in Atlanta, but it was an uphill battle. We couldn't find the right audience to raise the capital. And lesson for us is, end of the day, you have to be defining your not only consumer, but at the same time investors. So anywhere, investors or entrepreneurs in the crowd right now, pay the attention, have a plan, and that's why I go about it. And something, the panel touched about, having a business plan, having a viewpoint. Jumping is great, but at the same time, having a parachute is always going to help you. And again, thank you, Nazira, for having us here. And, it's a wonderful time to participate and tell our story.
Who's the boss?
Both are. we have all bosses on top of us.
And the investors are our bosses.
The funny part is, you choose, so we have a, governing board as well. So we chose our boss. So you have to find our boss. That's the only good thing an entrepreneurship would do. You'll find the bosses and you'll put them on top of you.
You can, and that goes back to your point about mentors, right? When you get to the point of you're choosing your board, you really can choose the people that will help you grow your business and be that, at first, most of our board started as advisors, and then they became investors. And now we have a great board of directors that really guides us in where we want to go, and that's a big asset.
Have you both in these 2 years or a year stopped talking because you had misunderstandings?
Not really,
no.
actually.
Maybe that's only
No,
with women
we-
then.
No, I mean,
we don't stop talking.
we talk more.
More.
Because at the end of the day, you have to communicate. If you can't communicate, no matter their differences, you have to always communicate. If more you keep things to you, it's going to create bigger problem. And that's something we have done well. Anything can be. And again, we come from different background. Mine is more finance operation. He is marketing and customer experience. So I don't understand what he does. He doesn't understand what I do. But you have to make it work, right? And figuring out, learning from each other, and going back to Mr. Paul's point, having a co-founder really complements you. And that's something, increases your strength, helps you really build a business which is more viable, can go further.
If you can only see our Slack channels.
Thank you so much for those.
Thank you, Nazira. Thank you for having us.
Thank
really.
you. So before we finish our session, we would like to take questions, and I can take the mic, bring the mic to you. Thank you. Yeah. Yes. And you can come forward a little bit. We can take probably 5 questions.
Thank you very much. My English may not be very good. I really appreciate this is very excellent opportunity for me to be here. And I learned from everyone, and I'm sure who are here who didn't talk or speak, they have also great wealth of knowledge. I like to share, my name is Azhar Awan. I did my PhD from Lehigh University. I lost my job January 16th of this year, but I developed almost 16 new products. One of them is being used to clean, Delta Airlines. That's one of them. So now I decided to open my own company. So I was traveling Middle East. I'm looking opportunities in India, Pakistan, and in the US. And I need everyone's help, their advice, how I can be very successful in Georgia and in Atlanta. And I like to share with the congressman, last 10 years, a lot of great talent moved in this state. And I think Atlanta and the Georgia will be one of the best state in the country.
Great. Do you want to take that question? The question was, how can he be more successful in Georgia?
Yes.
Well, I think the question was answered. You know, you just have to reach out to everybody, figure out what it is that you want to do, and then determine who is best suited to help you. I mean, I think
Okay.
everybody's answered that question.
Sounds good. Any other comments for that question? Okay, thank you so much, and best of luck for your work. We have, yes, Vijay, thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. This question is for Dr. Neil. Neil, you told us when you are talking, you are the business, first you are in the business operator, then operator come owner, then now you are the owner. So which phase helped you to grow the business? Whether you are inside the business or you are on the business?
The business knowledge I got when I started my own medical practice. You have to run that business to make it profitable. Not only revenue is important, but more important is profit. But the most important thing is the cash flow.
Correct.
You can have a lot of revenue, you can have profit on the paper, but if you cannot pay your employees, you're done. So that's an important lesson learned. Once you start the business, doing everything ahead of time, getting prepared, and then have the right kind of people that you hire. And I heard a saying that hire the best one and get out of their way. And I followed that literally, and that has helped me.
Very nice.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And so that goes to say leaders who are less micromanaging have a better team of success.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Sounds good.
one more quick question. So you have a marketing team or something? Really, the marketing team helps a lot to grow the business, or sometimes marketing team not able to grow the business kind of?
If you have the right team, they will help a lot.
Okay.
But your job as an entrepreneur is to picking the right team, right person to market, and give them the ideas. They cannot do everything on their own because you know the business, and they have to figure out how to give the right message to the right customer at the right time.
Okay, thank you.
Very nice. I saw 2 or 3 more hands raised. Let's go ahead. Rahul?
Thank you for being up here today. So the biggest question I have is, are there, and this is for all of you, are there specific processes that you guys have found that tend to be repeated over and over with startups that lead to a greater chance or greater probability of success?
Yeah, plan, and more planning. And failure to plan means that you will probably fail.
Thank you.
So I follow the rule of 3. If it's going to take more than 3 steps, it's going to involve more than 3 people, or you're going to do it more than 3 times, it needs to be written down and turned into a process. So if you're doing it just once, people get obsessed by that, but 3, 3, 3.
No? Measurement. I think if people don't measure their business, if you don't know what cash flow you got yesterday, if you know it, 7 work days into the next month kind of deal, if you don't measure your business, I wonder how you're going to really grow your business. And most people don't even think about it. It's one of those, I'm just doing business, I'll wait till the accountant tells me how I did last month. That's a terrible way to run business.
So I agree with the representative. Plan is really important. The basic strategy of a business, and I know you were going to ask me this question, how does business evolve over the years, or how will it evolve in the future? The basic strategies of a business don't evolve. Technology evolves, but whether it be business my parents were doing 40 years ago or what I'm starting today, the basic strategies, the basic business plan, the HR, those processes have not changed. We're still humans. We still follow the same plan. So having a strong business plan and keeping your team on task on that business plan is really important.
Very nice. Arif, go ahead.
All right, this is my first time attending it. I've been trying to attend it for a year and a half, and I'm sorry, I couldn't do it.
It's better late than never.
Yeah, it's better late than never. I'm extremely proud of you, Nazira, for doing this. It's a great opportunity for getting into startups or any kind of business, so I'm really proud of you. Every single person is your panel is extremely knowledgeable, and I'm so happy that I'm here today. I don't need to start any more businesses because I have too many of them. The passion that I have for business is amazing. I go into every business and I run every business that this is my only business. So that's why I'm very successful. The passion that comes in. Not necessarily plans that I do most of the time. I just do it with my guts and get it over with it. The end goal is I have to make this company to a new IPO. That's the goal. That's how I started. Any company that I start, I go with that. And Paul is an amazing partner, and he's doing a great job doing that. And I don't know most of the people, but I know Paul, and is an amazing. Anybody wants to start a business, you go listen to Paul, you have a great business. But not just promoting you, Paul, but
thank you.
Great. Going back to your Sabziwala, is it an Indian-based company, India-based company, or US-based company?
US.
I tried to log into your website. I don't know, somehow I couldn't. All right, so that's why I couldn't get into it. So usually I checked out the company before I get it. So it's a great company, a great idea. Okay. Other than that, I'm very happy to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
Anybody?
Thank you so much for those comments. We appreciate it. And I have to tell you that these are mostly sponsorship-based Chai and Just Chats. So we would love for you to consider sponsoring next time. We make it at no cost to attendees. Sometimes, like I said, to keep the social entrepreneurship going, we do put money from our pockets, but at some point it has to become sustainable. So we do keep looking for family sponsors or sponsors like how Sam jumped in and said, let's do this idea, someone to collaborate with. So consider that for the future sessions. As you saw, we have already one doing for next month at the John Street International Festival, and then the 1 month later at another center. So you're welcome to participate in all of those as well. I saw 2 more hands raised for questions. Go ahead. Yes, she has.
Here, $5 for the mic.
Contribution.
To collect money.
Hello, thank you very much for this. It's been very, very helpful. Maybe I'm getting too specific, but I have a question for you. When you're starting the business or your first business and you do not have any experience of how to split the pie within your partner or partners, what would you recommend us to do? Like, I know that you can get into the numbers and say like, oh, your opportunity cost of doing this or that. Do you really do that, or do you take care of the relationship? How do you handle that? And if you have seen, like, what have you seen in the market, or what's your personal experience or recommendation?
Great, that's yours.
And I'm going to tell them to talk to you.
Get it in writing.
Get it in writing, and make sure you keep whoever is the control stays in control. The beginning is the problem. It's the money, the honeymoon period. I've got a lawyer I work with. It's a lady, and she's like, men always look for the operating agreement when they're lost, which is later, and they haven't written it at the beginning. So you need a good lawyer at the beginning, because they'll determine what is equitable, what makes sense. You should sit down and talk to her.
So Eric, is it okay to say that even having a lawyer is a cost? Is that a good investment?
For that, yes.
Okay.
I can't tell you any operating agreement. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I got one of my best divorces out of a good operating agreement.
Great, thank you. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank
Did
you very
have
much.
Wait, Dr. Paul
I'm not
has-
sure that, are you looking for a mathematical answer, or are you looking for a qualitative answer?
So both, because I kind of know how to do the numbers, but in the end I care about the relationships. I was wondering what you have seen in your experience that kind of wages, like how you should actually handle it. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know that there's any one answer. I mean, if you've got 3 partners, you start off with, it's equal, but then you figure out who's going to bring more value, et cetera, and move the numbers around and get to a place where you all agree, right? But I don't know that there's anything. I mean, in the businesses we see the percentages all over the map.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah.
actually good
There
to
is
know.
no standard answer.
And thank you very much. Actually, I was like writing like hell all the time. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We can take 2 more questions before we close out. Go ahead, and then we'll come to you, Hina.
I'd like to talk about from a parent perspective. I have some children. I have a 28 and 30-year-old that's a different generation in their own. And when they go to school, they're looking at me where I did work for corporate, but I was only in school looking to get a job, not to be an entrepreneur. What suggestions can you give me? And I'll give you a good example, probably for you. My daughter is. Criminal justice was her background. Now she's getting her doctor's in forensic psychology. But I'm trying to figure out what kind of job are you looking for? Are you looking to become security, or are you looking for from a lawyer perspective? So it's kind of hard for me to try to say this is what you should do. So I just want to get your feedback on that.
Well, I would say, so I don't know if you guys are familiar with the term, and maybe the tech space is the gig economy. And that's basically what millennials are looking for. They don't want a job that they're signing up to work for the next 5, 10, 20 years. They want a job that's going to be 4 months. They want a job that's going to be 6 months, that's going to be 12 months. And so companies are adjusting to that, right? Because millennials do want quality of life, and they do want free time to say, well, I do want to work on my next big idea. And so it's an adjustment. And it's an adjustment in the business world, but it's coming. And I have friends who are at big clients who have now they have a whole different HR website for their gig employees, because it's what is here now, and they're part of the workforce, and you have to deal with it. So I don't know where she's going to end up, but I would say that there's way more flexibility now, and that businesses are realizing that millennials want flexibility, and they're trying to meet them where they are.
Very nice. Anything else to add, Satya? Yes.
Absolutely, because I get people walk into my stores saying, hey, I want a job for 4 months. I just want to pay this bill and go to Hawaii and work over there for a year and come back. This is what they ask me. And I'm like, sure, why not, right? And then I put them into work for 2 days, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, you don't fit here. And there are no hard feelings. They're like, oh, I just tried. So this is a new generation. They are trying to still find their anchor. They are still trying to find their passion. So don't get discouraged. They have ways to go. They'll find it.
I work with youth, my organization, Youth Business University. We're finding that the younger generation in middle school. We're finding that the younger generation, like in middle school, they're coming back to the old school thinking. Like today, I work with a young man that's 13 years old. He's getting ready to launch his business. With designing his business card, with designing his flyer and everything, and we're putting together this presentation. So just gaps. So I think we're going to have to understand that each generation may be different, and how do we adapt to that?
Very nice. I'm going to take the final question from Hina. Okay, you have a mic.
Thank you so much, all panelists, for enlightening us with this, especially new for me. My quick question is, could you tell me about a couple of pros and cons of having a partner in a startup? And another question just related to the same question is, how many partners we should plan for, if we plan for?
Sure. So Sam and then Antonio.
So like Mr. Lopez said earlier, there's no specific mathematical formula, but it is really helpful to have a co-founder, like you saw the relationship between Sajal and Manav. Someone once told me that finding the right co-founder is harder than finding the right life partner. I don't have either, so what do I know?
Go ahead, Antonio.
Yeah, And I recommend also if you want to have a partner, a business partner, if you have somebody that maybe have some skill that you don't have, that they complement, like the two gentlemen that we're talking here, one is very good in marketing, the other one in finance, that will definitely complement. Remember that from the bank point of view, when we talk about the credit score, all those type of things, it's important to have those discussions because that will put against a future plan of the business if one of you have really issues that need to be addressed before. And I will say that, put everything in, writing. We already saw that, the operating agreement, and also, I know at the beginning it's difficult to think about that, but you always want to think later on in an exit strategy. Are you going to be in this business forever? Are you wanting to have the exit strategy when you're going with your partner or your business partner? You always have to have that because if something happened to one of you, do you want to be in business with his or her family? Probably no. So that's something that needs to be addressed from the beginning. But I think the most important thing, if you have a set of skills, if you can have somebody that complement with a different set of skills, I think it's a perfect situation.
I think also you have to look at the business compatibility, but you also have to look at the personal compatibility. Because if the person that you are entering business with has a different set of values than you do, it's going to be really, really difficult. And I had a business that I walked away from it. I put the money up, but it got to be such a headache. I was like, at my age, I don't need it. And I just said, you want it, you have it, go. And it was born out of, my thought was the first people that you pay is your banker. You want to make sure you pay the banker back their money. Second person that you pay is all of your employees and all the folks that are there. The last people to get paid are the owners. She didn't see it that way. She wanted to get paid first. And sometimes, that didn't work. So I just said, bye. As soon as I left, please fold it. But anyway.
Thank you so much. So let's give it up for the panelists. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. And I would like to invite the kids back there. All the kids, we would like to thank the panelists with a gift. So if you can give the gift to them, please come forward. I'd also like to invite the team, Rajan and Purvin and Neelam and Dina, who helped us out today. Kids, come friend. I just want you to give these gifts to the panelists. Everybody has one. So awesome. Thank you so much.